Consider the story of Sarah, a bright 15-year-old who found herself drawn in the world of social media, like many her peers. Her journey started innocent enough, a few posts here and there on the favorite platform. But as time passed by, she's checking for updates, obsessing over numbers of likes, comparing herself to others, reducing her sleeping hours. She's addicted. Her mom found this out and argued with Sarah. This turned into endless fight. And finally, her mom decided to confiscate her phone for Sarah's sake. But this only fueled Sarah's resentment even more. Stories like this happen in other scenarios as well. Parents rush into the web cafe, pull their children away from the glowing screen, seize children's laptop and shatter it against the floor. Sometimes they took away children's allowance, hoping that without the means to play, the children will finally break free from the web addiction. They believe web addiction are like drugs. Once you control it, restricting access, and they will become healthy again.
Is it true? Let's take a look at an experiment called Rat Park. This video is made by Minute Videos on YouTube. It's an experiment made by Professor Alexander. He made these very large cages for these rats where they have everything they need, such as friends and water, food, while they have free access to the drugs. But surprisingly, these rats didn't choose to use the drugs. The researchers even took one step further for the study. They made the rats use drugs for 57 days in a lonely cage until they became heavily addicted, and then placed them back in the rat park. Astonishingly, the rats gradually reduced their drug use until they stopped using these drugs, and they lived their happy life with their friends.
If you think rats can't represent human, there are also human experiment evidence to prove this. During the Vietnam War, around 20% of American troops were using loads of heroin. The government was so worried that when the war ends, it will be hundreds of junkies on the streets. However, to everyone's surprise, they didn't go to rehab, they didn't go into withdrawal. 95% of them just stopped. Why? Sounds unbelievable, right? It's heroin. It sounds more scary than web addiction. Now, let's look at a real example about social media addiction. In a case study conducted by Li Meijin, a professor in China, a boy was found to be addicted to online video games. Initially, his father banned him from playing, withheld his money, chased him out from the internet cafes, like all the other parents. These measures proved ineffective. Then the father introduced the boy to table tennis, encouraging him to participate in competitions while refraining from intervening in his gaming habits. As the boy developed a passion for table tennis, he gradually spent less time on online gaming. What does this tell us? Our traditional methods of treating web addiction are fundamentally flawed. We used to isolate them. We make them suffer. Professor Alexander, who did the Rat Park experiment, said, the addiction isn't about chemical hooks. It's about the cage, the environment. It is the environment makes them addicted. So if we create the environment akin to the rat park, they will choose healthier alternatives. It is time to rethink our approach to addiction. To all sorts of addictions, smartphones, shopping, gambling, alcohol, what kind of cage are they in matters. Professor Peter Cohen suggests we should rename addiction to bonding, as human beings have a natural and innate need to bond. We bond to things that will give us a sense of relief, joy, and achievement. Loving friends, hobbies, work, family. By fostering these bonds, we automatically diminish our bond to addictions. Now let's dive deeper. Why are children addicted to social media? It is not only about the hook. It is also because they lack a happy life they want to fight for. Our current environment in many countries resembles the first cage. Children are isolated and valued for their academic performance only. Exams drive them relentlessly forward. Our teens' cage is too constricting. No wonder there are increasing mental problems. There are addictions. As Professor Alexander said, we talk about individual recovery from addiction all the time, but we need to talk more about social recovery. Our society is sick. We are all trapped in isolated cages, not red parks anymore. What is the solution then? Not isolation, but connection. To suppress the darkness is to bring in light. Addiction is just the surface. What leads to it is much more profound. We must prioritize social recovery. We need to nurture bonds with our loved ones, passions, and pursuits that bring us joy and fulfillment. Ultimately, it is about cultivating a life worth living, where passion and connection thrive and addiction fades into the background.